There's a storm brewing over Kosovo after a draft report from the Council of Europe linked Prime Minister Hashim Thaçi with serious human rights abuses, including organ and drugs trafficking. The paper also claims the international community has ignored suspected war crimes in the region for years. A full document will be presented on Thursday. RT's Alice Hibbert has more.
Prime Minister Hashim Thaçi was identified in a Council of Europe report as the head of a major Albanian mafia-like crime network. It's claimed by the report that it's the major dominating presence in all aspects of organised crime in the region, including arms, human and drugs trafficking, and most shockingly of all, the killing of Serbs both during and after the 1999 Kosovan War, using their organs for harvesting to then be sold on the black market. This report was led by the human rights investigator Dick Marty and is due to be formally presented to the Council on Thursday. In this report, Mr Marty says that Mr Thaçi's connections to organised crime date back well over 10 years when his Srebrenica group became the dominant factor within the Kosovan Liberation Army, the KLA. And in this report, Mr Marty is highly critical of the international community for largely ignoring the actions of the KLA during the Kosovan War. And as a result, Mr Thaçi and those loyal to him have played a dominant role in Kosovan politics for the past decades. The leaking of this report also coincided with the beginning of legal proceedings in a Pristina courthouse into an alleged case of organ trafficking that was discovered by the Kosovan police in 2008. And in this Council of Europe report, Mr Marty makes a connection with that case and the alleged organ harvesting of the KLA in 2000. And all of this comes as tensions are already running high in Pristina after the historic elections there, the first general election to take place in the region since its unilateral declaration of independence in 2008. Mr Thaçi's Democratic Party of Kosovo claimed victory in those elections, but allegations of vote rigging have led for the other major parties there to call for a recount. So tensions running high in this Council of Europe report, causing even more waves to ripple across the already troubled region.
Alice Hibbert reporting there. And Marko Gasic from the British-Serbian Alliance for Peace says any punishment Hashim Thaçi might face is nothing compared to what he's done to Kosovo.
He faces, to put it mildly, a difficult time, but I think the time he faces is nothing compared to the time that those living human beings who were kept in concentration camps and were systematically cut up and then sewn back up again after organs had been removed from them in a series of episodes till they were finally begging to be murdered rather than continually chopped up and let live in that condition. I'm sure that anything that happens to him will be mild compared to what his Srebrenica group at the head of the KLA, which took over Kosovo from Serbia, were responsible for. And I guess that my expectation is this report will be hushed up as much as it is possible to be, because so many politicians have invested so much interest into this abysmal, awful, criminal state, this banana republic in the heart of Europe, which has nothing better to do than to traffic in human beings, organs, drugs and women. That's Kosovo for you.
Kosovo is marking the third anniversary of its declaration of independence from Serbia, but the republic continues to suffer from huge economic and political chaos. And the crisis has been further deepened by a recent critical report submitted by the Council of Europe. It accuses some of Kosovo's leading politicians, including the current Prime Minister Hashim Thaçi, of being involved in horrendous crimes during the 1999 War of Secession. Among the allegations are executions, abductions and organ trafficking. On Wednesday, Serbia called on the UN Security Council to investigate the charges. Well, let's discuss this further now with Marko Gasic from the British-Serbian Alliance for Peace, who's joining us now from London. Now, some Serbs are saying these allegations have been public knowledge for years. So why do you think they haven't been investigated before?
Well, I think they've been known about before. They almost don't need investigating. But the key thing is, if we go back those 11 years to when Serbia was being bombed, when people were being butchered on bridges, in schools and hospitals and railway stations, where people were being killed in the name of a supposedly good Albanian leadership that needed protecting with its population. Those crimes that were committed against Serbians at that time were so huge that to admit that, in fact, the reality was that the Albanians that the US was sponsoring at the time were indeed organ stealers, sexual and women enslavers, and villains in a variety of different kinds, would be to delegitimize one's own propaganda operation. So they couldn't go back from their original claims without admitting that they'd been lying all along, particularly in 1999. And that would have meant that those who bombed Serbia were culpable in criminal terms for that bombing and should answer before an international court. So, of course, it would be very difficult for them to say, actually, yes, we are indeed wrong, we were wrong, we supported the wrong side, and that was one step too far for them. It took a man of great courage, which was Dick Marty, to actually articulate what they'd been hiding. OK,
so you're saying, well, an investigation is not necessary because it's all known, but surely an investigation would be necessary now, but perhaps will it achieve anything if, indeed, the UN Security Council does carry out an investigation?
Well, the question is who will carry out the investigation, because everybody seems to be, as Carla Del Ponte, the former chief prosecutor, put it, rather too afraid of the Albanian reach, that's the reach of the extremist Albanian leaders, to actually volunteer to investigate. There seems to be no body charged with the task of actually investigating Dick Marty's findings. So it will require a brave Security Council and a committed Security Council, one that wants the truth to actually appear, and I have my doubts whether that will appear out of the Security Council.
Looking back at what happened, one also surely should look forward. It was a terrible time, a tragedy for all involved. Now we're seeing a time of reparation in a way, where EU countries are sending billions now in aid to Kosovo, and surely now it's only a matter of time before Kosovo can actually stand on its own 2 feet, isn't it? This will take a long time, and it's happening, is it not?
Well, sending billions of euros in aid to criminals and murderers and drug runners, as far as I'm concerned, not a good policy. Those criminal networks are already standing on their own 2 feet, and they can send aid to the EU. The people who are on their knees are the Serbians there, and indeed the Albanians in general, who are among the poorest populations in Europe. The Serbians particularly have been targeted by all kinds of nationalist extremism there, but nobody's having a good time, and this is the fake state that the US experiment has created. It's a one step towards a greater Albania, but this is actually greater poverty, greater evil, and greater instability for the whole world that's been created in Kosovo today.
There is a chance that there could be some dialogue between Serbia and Kosovo. What do you think you can expect from that?
I think we need to understand that Serbia, in that dialogue, has to have the position that it's trying to decide the future of its own sovereign territory, of which Kosovo is inalienably a part. Should there be a temptation to legitimize the criminal authorities in Pristina as in some way equal interlocutors, that will be really legitimising the criminals that really deserve to be behind bars rather than in front of them. So we need a committed position from Serbia, because we need a proper discussion about a future for Serbians and Albanians that will solve, in a way, the problems of both through a mutually beneficial agreement, not one that will be zero for the Serbians and everything for the extremist Albanian criminal leaders in Pristina today.
Well, let's talk about that future for Serbians. Now, Serbia has clearly made it absolutely clear to everyone that it wants to join the EU. And certainly there are hints of a softening of Belgrade's stance towards Kosovo. But what do Serbs care more about? Let's hear it from you. I mean, do you care more about joining the EU or getting Kosovo back?
I think intelligent Serbs understand that if the price of joining a club is that you give part of your house as the price of joining that club, if that's the price, it's not a price worth paying, because it shows that your status in that club will not be the one that will be of benefit to you. Serbia has 500 years worth of resources in Kosovo. For 500 years coming up now, will the EU be subsidising Serbia to actually sacrifice all those resources and be paying the people who ethnically cleanse the Serbians from Kosovo for the resources of Serbia in Kosovo? The economic figures don't stand up. Serbia needs both. It does need EU membership, but it's not ready for it yet. But it certainly needs its Kosovo back, and it's certainly ready for that.
All right, well, it's very interesting to hear what you have to say. Marko Gazic from the British-Serbian Alliance for Peace, thanks very much indeed for joining us live here on RT.
Serbia's parliament is debating whether to apologize to Bosnian Muslims over the massacre of 8,000 men and boys in Srebrenica in 1995. Nationalists have rejected the draft resolution, saying it should also mention Serb victims in the 90s conflict. The debate comes 3 months after Serbia applied for EU membership. Let's cross now to Misha Gavrilovic in London, a Balkans expert who's been following events in the former Yugoslavia for the past 20 years. Well, good to see you, sir. So why is this debate happening 15 years after the event?
I should think there is considerable external pressure coming from the European Union, from the tribunal in The Hague, and also from the United States, for Serbia to effectively self-indict, to self-criminalize and declare itself guilty in some way. That is certainly what has been going on pretty much for the last, I'd say, almost 20 years. I mean, there has been massive foreign intervention there. Let's be clear that NATO, with 19 countries, has actually bombed the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, of which Serbia is the major republic. It has also intervened in Bosnia, and it needs an excuse to justify its intervention. One simple way is to declare someone a criminal and then say our intervention has been justified. I think that is unmistakably what is behind this in a main way.
Do you think that joining the EU is the right path for Serbia?
It all depends on the conditions under which Serbia is to join the European Union. I mean, the European Union is an economic and a political unit. If Serbia was to join this, I would expect that it would have to meet certain conditions regarding the way it would have to organize its markets and its economies to integrate, if you like, into this union. But now to bring up certain moral and very questionable moral issues shows that there is a political agenda behind this. In fact, the European Union wants to themselves criminalize Serbia, and I believe that actually it is the United States that is camouflaging itself behind the European Union and is making it make demands on Serbia for demands that Washington would otherwise make on its own, but finds that it is not quite appropriate to be seen in such a way.
Talk to me about public opinion on this apology and on Serbia's potential accession to the EU.
Okay, public opinion, of course, rejects this in a massive way. First of all, because so far there has been hardly any talk about Serbian victims in this whole situation. The other thing that we have to bear in mind is that Serbia has been declared innocent on this particular case over Srebrenica by the highest court authority in the world, and this is the International Court of Justice, which in February 3 years ago declared Serbia to be innocent of the charges of genocide in Bosnia and in particular over Srebrenica. It is true that they stated that Serbia in fact did not prevent things happening in Bosnia, but then that is hardly an appropriate statement to make, I dare say, because had Serbia intervened in any way, it would be a question of aggression. There were other countries that could have done so. The obvious way would be to demilitarize the Srebrenica area, as was demanded by UN resolution, and in which case this whole thing would not have happened.
So on the discussion of potential apology, and I know you just mentioned that you think there's politicking behind it, but if the outcome is in favor of an apology, what impact do you think this will have?
Well, as I said, it would self-criminalize Serbia and its people in order to justify foreign intervention. Let's be quite clear, we've had intervention in 1941. Those days it was the Nazis, this time it is NATO. The Americans have built the largest military base in Europe, in Camp Bondsteel. And if you look what is happening, in fact, in the region, effectively we have had a dismantling of an existing state. This is the Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, which now no longer exists as a result of this intervention. And we have a territory now referred to, very insultingly to me, as the Western Balkans. Well, you know, that is exactly how foreign colonial empires used to refer to certain regions on a geographical basis as if there was no history there. Western Balkans, by the way, the capital is Camp Bondsteel, whereas the capital of Yugoslavia was Belgrade, where I come from. I think we need to make this very clear distinction. But the interventionists, the interveners, need this to justify the interventions that they have made in the region. I'm speaking particularly about 19 NATO countries, 10 years ago, the aggression against the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. And one obvious way is to get the Serbian government, which they themselves have brought to power almost 10 years ago, by the way, to do the apologies on their behalf.
Misha Gavrilovic, you are a political expert on the Balkans. Thank you very much for that.